Welcome to Dangerous Wisdom, a journey into mystery and a gateway to the mind of nature and the nature of mind. This is Dr. Nikos, your friendly neighborhood soul doctor. I am happy to be here with you, friends, and together we are going to create a culture of wisdom, love, and beauty. Auspicious interbeing to you and yours, Koinos Hermes. Deep bow to Sophia, also Athena and Poseidon, for reasons that we'll get to when we get along with our dialogue today, which is a super fun one. I'm really excited about today's dialogue, friends, because it's got horses. It's got the psyche, the soul of the world, the soul of each one of us, interwoven, the symbolic imagery that we need to tap into the energies of the psyche, still waiting to be unleashed in our time. We have a task to do, and we don't have to do it alone. The other sentient beings and the great intelligence of the world can support us if we know how to work with them. And we're going to talk about a tool. You know me, guys, if you know me well, you know I don't like tools. So let's just say a process, a holistic practice that you could use to help tap into this larger intelligence. And it comes from my guest and her collaborator. My guest today is Kim McElroy. She has been drawn to horses since childhood. That's a story I can relate to, and I think probably a lot of you. As soon as she could hold a crayon, this manifested in her art. For nearly 40 years, she has been known for her intuitive understanding of the sentient nature of horses and her ability to infuse her art with their spiritual energy. She distills this energy into expressions of the horses in ways that transcend how they are traditionally defined. Through her incredible mastery of pastels and her talent in writing about her visionary insights, she conveys the power and beauty of the horse's form. Yet more than that, she offers us a timeless glimpse of the horse's soul. Kim is the co-author and illustrator of The Council of Horses. That's right here, friends. Beautiful, beautiful. People sometimes call these oracle decks. Different ways to talk about that. We'll get to that, maybe. She is the co-author and illustrator of The Council of Horses, which was published last year, 2024. And I'm saying that because it's just January. It feels so arbitrary, and yet there it is. We're in 2025. Illustrator and co-creator of Way of the Horse, Equine Archetypes for Self-Discovery, the deck and guidebook that she did with Linda Kohanoff, which was really wonderful. I really enjoyed working with that one. That was published in 2007, and a second edition came out in 2022. Look for that, friends. It's a really good one, too. In 2000, Kim and her husband, Rod, created Skyland Sea. That's SKYELANDESEA. We'll have links in the show notes. It's a sanctuary in Washington State where they provide loving forever homes to rescued horses and other non-humans. Their sanctuary is now home to a resident herd of wild but well-fed deer and 2 rambunctious house cats, those guys. And we'll have some links so you can see Kim's work and what she's up to. Kim, welcome to Dangerous Wisdom, my wisdom sister.
So happy to be here. Just listening to you read my bio is like a deep dive into every word. Your voice and your intention is so beautiful to hear.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. Same in your art, and maybe we can talk about that. Let's see, where should we start? You know, one of the things that I thought maybe we could say, how do you look at what this sort of practice is, this practice of working with cards like this? Because I said, you know, some people call it an oracle deck, and I don't like that. I really do resist this tool thing because humans are already, we're out of whack. We are not the tool animal. That's not what we're here to do. And
Right.
then we have this arrangement of stuff we like in our toolbox. And that's not really necessarily where we need to go. And I think that is part of the horse's message, is to invite us into wholeness, into ecologies, and into kind of practices that have much more richness and depth to them. But this kind of practice can be part of that. So
It
how do you
can.
look at it, though? How would you talk about what it's like to work with something like this?
I love the word practice. That's so beautiful. And there was another phrase you used, which I don't have a memory for words, but I'd love to reflect on that. But yes, it's well, it gives us access. So the cards are like um a touchstone, a way of allowing us to hold something in our hands, view something with our eyes and our heart, and tap into that innate wisdom that's within us and in the universe to offer guidance and it condenses the information down so that we can access it because there's just so much to to reach out to. And I feel that horses are also that way for us, that when we're with them and asking questions, which a lot of times when people are with them, they're not asking questions, they're telling them or they're doing with them. But if we reflect on ourselves when we're with horses, and I experienced this myself newly when I met Linda Kohanoff and I began working and learning from her, that they open up these amazing states of mind and being. And so the cards, I think, allow people who may be not familiar with that process, not familiar with the idea that horses can do that, or who already are familiar but would like a way of accessing a specific reflection on what is the question, then it gives us a stillness and an answer in the way of this is where you need to look within.
Yeah. Now, would you like to hear a philosophical explanation of this?
I would.
Yeah. So, because I would like to connect this for everybody listening, we've got a lot of threads here, and this material is so important for us right now. This is not like I'm having an interview with somebody who did a horse thing, and so then I think it's cool. It's that the world really needs us to deepen our understanding of ourselves and this world. And so we've got these threads running through the Dangerous Wisdom podcast. Way back, we did an episode on the dangerous wisdom of horses. Well, there were a couple about horses, but one about the magic of the horse. And that was in a series on magic that really tried to connect the word magic to ecological and spiritual reality, as opposed to something that it can't possibly happen. Then now, recently, toward the end of last year, we were doing just a straight up examination of ecology and what ecology is and what mind is. And we proposed the idea that mind is an ecology. Now, an ecology, and we've come to see this now. It's a little weird still for us. Freud was one of the first people who really popularized the idea that, wait a second, the psyche is vast. But his ecology ultimately wasn't super complex. Then Jung came along and said, oh, the psyche is way bigger than you think. It transcends the boundary of the skin, and it has these patternings in it, these energies that have their own life. They're kind of impersonal. But where our personal life meets that impersonal, there's this razor's edge where it's both or neither or something mysterious. But where that meets, he called those archetypes. Nobody ever gets to see an archetype, but we see expressions of them, and those symbolic expressions orient the psyche toward that wholeness that it seeks, and also orient it toward wisdom, love, and beauty. Now, in relation to knowing about our lives and our world, we realize that the world is so complex that the little part of our ecology that says, I know, I'm not sure what to do, I do know what to do, I'm going to use this card deck, that can't know this big, large ecology because it's just too big. It's a little piece. The little piece doesn't know the whole, but the whole can do a knowing that the little part can never do, but could hear, could be guided by. And when we use something like a deck like this, we are allowing ourselves to release into this larger ecology that can know things that the I cannot by itself know. And so when you mentioned that carrying extra information, that's part of what's happening here, because the symbol holds the part of the thing especially which is totally unknown to the ego. It's on the other side of the symbol somehow. And so this is really It's not even for those of us who might be very skeptical. You could be very atheistic and say, I don't believe in oracles. But scientifically, you're an ecology. The little part can't know the whole, but we could activate more of the whole, listen to more of the whole, and that can guide us. So there's real knowledge that can come from working with something like this if it's been well done. And this one's been very well done because you're drawing on a spiritual keystone species that has so much for us right now. So that's my kind of general philosophical. I don't know if you agree with it, if it makes some sense.
Absolutely. That's again, your way with condensing that information and accessing that wisdom is so profound, and I love everything you said. It's so rich and feels so true. Thank you.
No, well, thank you for your work because this is a real passion project. And anybody who's ever tried to do anything, you think of making all the beautiful images that are in this. Can we maybe look at a few? We want to have as much imagery as we can in here. Maybe I'll just start,
Sure.
if you don't mind, with there's a pretty couple of pictures at the beginning. I like the one with the picture of the cards with the greenery behind it. So if you are only listening, you can go to YouTube and we're going to try to have some imagery up that Kim has curated for us so kindly. This is what the box looks like. I have it back here. Sophia is guarding the box of cards for me there on the shelf behind me. And then, so that's I really like that one because it has some of my favorites cards, but then also I love that it's with the greenery. So
Right.
beautiful. So there we see what some of the cards look like. And so this is, you see the level of passion and commitment that went into producing all of these images. It's like doing all these paintings. I know some of us, if you don't paint, you don't, it's hard to understand like really what it takes to produce these images. And some of us realize it. That's part of what's compelling about beauty is we realize how much energy went into it, how much passion and presence. Okay, do you have anything you'd like to say about those images, or would you like me to look at another one?
Yeah, it's beautiful to see them on the screen, and it's beautiful to hold them in your hands. And then, like you said, it's also lovely that you're introducing the concept that each one is a work of art because it's not just a digital, created image on a computer. It's hand drawn pastel. And like the piece behind me, this is one of the cards that's behind me in my Zoom
Hmm.
screen, and so they works of art, and exactly so that each one was created for the deck, and some were works that I had done before that we chose for the concepts and the way that they needed to speak to this new interpretation. And it's just a joy to see them in reality because they were created in a the works that I did for the deck were created over about a year's period, and um, it's just amazing. They've sort of been in hibernation, which is interesting because the one red bear that you see on the right, he was actually the first being that I consciously had a vision and an experience with in one of my shamanic journeys, and to it was actually would have been it was 2006 when I had that vision. So for all those years, he was hibernating in my psyche, and I didn't do any sketches or art even of him. He was just in my heart and soul. And then when we got the connection with a publisher and were able to manifest this dream, then he emerged, and he ended up being representative of hibernation because his name is Bear, Red
Hmm.
Bear. So it's so really symbolic, even with that, just for me personally, of the art hibernating within me, waiting for this opportunity to, be emerged into this three-dimensional reality.
Hmm. And you, that process, that's another thing that's important about things like this. There was a tremendous amount of what we, I think, can reasonably call shamanic energy that produced the I Ching, which is still, a very, very extraordinary field guide to synchronistic science, which is what we're talking about in a way.
Right.
The science of synchronicity. How do we really because as we begin to shift, I agree. Wolfgang Pauli, the physicist, had this theory that in times of consciousness development or evolution, synchronicities can thicken a little, and they're really helping to guide you. That you can potentiate that, which means that you can try to contribute to your own development by inviting them and listening for them to guide you then in the journey. And that's one of the ways, one of the things that a deck like this does or that I Ching does. But I'm mentioning
Right.
this idea of the shamanic energy because when you were talking about the painting, anybody could sit down with AI and say, okay, I want a picture of Pegasus, and there's a spring there, and it's on a mountain, and you could create something in probably 90 seconds that would have the information in a certain way, but it misses the process. That's part of practice too, is that what a thing is depended on what went into it. And I think this is, you would find, of course, we'd have to be scientific if we really wanted to run an experiment, but I think that you'd find that an AI generated image, it couldn't produce the same kinds of results except by accident, because, of course, it's stealing from all the artists. So it could accidentally choose somebody else's work that did involve a lot of passion and make that an element. But that would be, I think that's a part of the function, and how you know if something is good is the way it came about, the intentions. And so the process for you sometimes involved shamanic journeying. You did some kind of
Mhm.
visionary activity. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that? Because some people might, that it's not everybody's first thought of, oh, I know how to make a work of art. I go on a shamanic journey and
Right.
receive a vision, and you know,
Yeah, it was not my experience for quite a while, of course, in my early upbringing and learning to do art, the skill of art. Though it's interesting looking back because when I look at my earlier works, a lot of them were shamanic in nature in terms of how uh intuitively I was seeing and drawing images within images and, overlapping things. There wasn't always just one reality. There was some kind of communication of the connectedness of all things or animals being part of other animals or that kind of thing. But then when I was in my early 20s, I was at a psychic fair and I had always been interested in any paranormal experiences and spirituality. And I had the opportunity to attend a one-day workshop with a shamanic teacher and I was fascinated by the concept of an animal totem and how's that work and I had all these thoughts about, how that would be and whether it would be happen for me. Everybody in the class is like, is this real? This actually happen? And what's so amazing about shamanic, I think, is that the drumming, even in the middle of a fairgrounds in, Seattle, in a big conference center, that ancient sound and that rhythm takes everyone to that place that they need to go, and even in a few brief moments. And so that was really transformational for me. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm not going to see a horse because that would just be too obvious. So I'm open to whatever, And as it turned out, it was a winged horse, but I didn't relate him immediately. Actually, my first thought wasn't, this is Pegasus. It just felt different, and his wings were more ephemeral and spiritual, and I just felt a deep connection to this being, and that was the beginning of an unfolding of that learning for me, and that experience of that was real to me. That was my own not only my interpretation but my vision, and I actually like saw with my waking eyes, with my eyes closed but not asleep. I saw an image that wasn't something I was trying to envision, like how would I draw a Pegasus or whatever,
mm,
and felt a deep kinship with this being. And then through other explorations over years that transpired, I began learning and asking this being, "Who are you?" And also through other clairvoyants and people that I trusted, I began to build a picture that he is and is a being that is like a sacred horse, and he welcomes those who are crossing over who need guidance, and that he was helping provide that from the perspective of the horse rather than a guardian angel or other human formed angelic presence, and that he allowed me to be one with him. I embodied him, he embodied me, and we shared that hoarseness. And that explained everything to me of how I had always felt that I was a horse, that how could I draw horses that hardly was around them, and I was always drawn to them. And so that began that journey. And then I began when I met when got my first horse, and I began experiencing what it was like to be in the presence of a horse frequently, daily. And then also like she was my my guide, and I was her initiate. And then really in this the journey of trying to help her heal her traumas from being a racehorse, I found Linda Kohaniff, and Linda Kohaniff actually found me because she heard a story about my mare and how she was reflecting my life issues, and she wanted to write about that in her book, and so we connected. So that all kind of unfolded, but the intuition piece began with the shamanic journeys.
Mm. That's really powerful because, as I say, the original shaman's drum is the skin of the earth and the hoof of the horse. And
Yes,
that really, there's almost no doubt in my mind that they learned that because there's that
that just gives me
ancient,
chills. Yeah.
yeah. And that, as you know, I suggest that Pegasus is not a horse that has wings, but that is what the soul is seeing when it sees a horse. We don't we think we added the as of some whimsy, but that's
Right.
part. And so you were getting that soul vision, I think, to some degree, is that yes, there's something that's just part of how the soul is seeing it, which it puts us in this tension between the symbolic and what we take to be the de facto reality, sort of like what the Protestants and Catholics fought over, right? No,
Right.
it is the body and blood. No, it's just a it's just a metaphor. And so it's there's from the soul's perspective, that argument is ridiculous. No, it's the body and blood, but don't lose your mind.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like it's beyond the fight that we have over it. It's really beautiful, and it's a beautiful way to try to create. The other thing that I noticed about in your history as an artist is that I think because I work with a lot of creatives, and I myself have my own much more modest creative practice, but I'm a philosopher, so I'm very interested in it. I was surprised how how many artists don't have the training where there's an active, of course, it's not surprising that there's no active introduction to the soul and to what that might mean. We're in the dominant culture, but it's also interesting. I sometimes reflect on the fact that Mark Rothko supposedly was an abstract painter, but I've met a few people in my life who said, well, the first time I really felt like I had a truly aesthetic experience where I was just like, whoa, was in front of a Rothko. And the thing that Rothko was very clear about was his paintings were not abstract. They were extraordinarily concrete. And you are going to feel the feeling that I felt when I was painting it. Each one
Wow.
of them is this kind of expression of. So from there, I then discovered, because my medium is a little bit more photography, though I do some calligraphy, but Minor White, he developed what he called the creative audience process. And the idea was this. Let's say I send you out and I say, I need you to go out. I want you to photograph love. The feeling, the feeling of real love that you have for any person or place or it's probably easier if it's got a face, but that's okay. But as long as it's a real feeling of love, and it can't be the subject of the photo, nor can the photo be like a mother cradling a baby or a couple holding hands. Can't be anything like that. I just want the feeling of love. Then you go and you sit down with about half a dozen people, and you don't tell them anything about what's going on, but you take them through a process that's sort of meditative, and you are evoking for them just what do you feel when you look at this image. Now, if not a single person says love, something has gone wrong in your process. And it's very often the case. I used to do this with my philosophy students. You would get every angsty thing that is related to love. Like someone might say, I feel like loneliness. And meanwhile, it was supposed to be about love. Or I feel like anxious, or I feel like something, it's all the kind of neurotic things. And then the artist is realizing, oh, that's in there and it's active. And I don't know how to access the actual feeling and get it. And so what's beautiful about your journey is that the horses helped teach you this lesson that not very many artists get, that there is this experience that I could convey something deep in the soul or even emotional
Yes.
or both, and a person could look at that and say, oh, I feel that. And that's what's so great too, because if you want anybody doing archetypal horse images with an oracle deck that you're going to work with, you want somebody who knows how to get that feeling so that as you meditate with the image, it starts to open you toward the possibilities. So I don't know what you think about any of that,
So,
but I just thought wanted to offer
yeah.
that.
Oh, absolutely. All of the everything you mentioned is right up my alley, as it were, because I actually am not familiar with the artists you're describing, but I can't wait to look them up and research that because I can't tell you how often I've been frustrated as an artist by the lack thereof of other artists that I would like to feel a kinship with and would like to understand and appreciate their work and I feel this sort of veil of um, a disconnect and I wrote a blog story about this wildlife art show that I went to and I was wandering, among hundreds of artists, and I was like, is there something wrong with me? I'm standing in front of an 8-foot painting of an elephant, walking towards me, and I can't feel anything. It's beautifully created. It's down to every detail, and then I began listening to the artist talking to a patron, and he's saying, I researched this, and I went to this part of the country, and da da da, and it was like. Oh, they there's something about not being able to put yourself in the animal, in the experience, which is a shamanic experience, and and to be that being in order to bring it forth and then express it in a way that others recognize and feel.
Mhm.
And exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it was something I intuitively sought but didn't know how to express always in words.
Yeah. And you see this beautifully, I think, in it's not, it is shamanic. And then there's also just this deep interwovenness. The wisdom traditions all have that energy in them ultimately, even the ones we think of as very, like Buddhist philosophy, seems very pristine. But no, no, because he's walking in the same land as the shaman. And the Zen tradition, of course, does this so beautifully because it strips it down to the most simple form of, say, a circle. The idea of that circle is that a Zen master looks at it and knows immediately. Was that the Zen mind? Was that a distracted mind? Was that someone rushing through? Were they really letting Buddha nature express Buddha nature directly with no interference? And it's very similar. Can the artist really let the elephant come through them?
Right.
And that takes a huge amount of trust. It also takes clarity of mind. And so it's a really beautiful, beautiful thing.
And
And how
like
do we
what you're
practice?
describing also reminds me of the Sumi painting,
Yeah.
how the Sumi artist is, spends a lifetime perfecting a line so that the line can convey that emotion and
That's it. That's it. And
mm-hmm.
that can be so simple. And then what's beautiful is it shows you the unity of the arts because the photographer can do something
Equally.
realistic, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as long as they know in the scene, and a great guide for this too, if you do want to look it up, and for any listeners here, I used to even when I was in the university teaching courses, but when I work with creatives now, or even ordinary people, because creativity is so essential to life. But the Zen of Creativity is a book by an actual Zen master, because otherwise I think it would be like a kitschy title.
Right, right.
But But he is an actual Zen master who only, by his own account, said, I was too atheistic and anti-religion to have ever found Zen except through the arts. And it was because he went to a show by Minor White and he looked at those photographs and he said, now technically, I can make images like this. I mean, every bit as good as this guy. But there is something in this guy's images that I just don't have in mine. And I want to know what that is. Well, eventually then he ends up becoming an actual Zen master. I mean, full-time monastic and specialized in working with artists. So he worked with a lot of artists, but he used photography as a medium because that was his training, but also it's so accessible
Uh-huh.
because anybody can get a camera and you can get the basics of how to work it and you could then focus on this part of it. So that if he said, go make an image of love, what do you get? And he tells a
Right.
beautiful story. I just really, because it's a Zen master telling you this. Now, he was pretty well developed in his practice. And so he had been really meditating and really trying to get to Zen mind. And he goes out. His place is in the Catskills. Still there. He died. Dido. God us bless you. Wonderful guy. So he was out in the mountains in the Catskills, and he's going to make these very spiritual images of the rock formations that are there. So he goes, he sets up the camera, he's meditating, he hears some noises. So he goes upstream because there was a river there. It was like had been a big watershed, and that's where these beautiful river stones were at. He goes upstream and he sees some people skinny dipping. And he just laughs, thinking, oh, that's really great. All right, well, it's okay. I can focus my mind. He makes his images and he does the creative audience process just as Minor White had taught him. And he has the people sit down. He always had his mother. He said, my mother was not an artist, didn't know anything about the arts, but you just have to guide people to feel what they're feeling and ask them, what do you feel? And everybody kept saying, oh, these are so sensual. And they're talking about sensuality, eroticism. And he's saying, no, these are spiritual pictures. And he was thinking, what in the world? What are they talking about? And then he thought, oh my goodness, I saw the naked people and it just stuck. And this whole time, I thought I was there. And so but it's so beautiful because if you get that feedback, then you really know. And
Well,
so
that's
you,
exactly right.
yeah.
Yes. Well, what I was thinking as you were saying was that that's that other missing piece, which is the artist's not only having a vision or having an experience and the desire to portray something, but it also reveals what's within us. So we're trying to, find what is it within us that needs expressing and to share that with humanity and find out what it is by putting it out into some visual form. And definitely, I remember a quote from George O'Keeffe that I loved that it was something like, I found I was, of course, I can't paraphrase it, but I found I was painting things that had meaning for me without knowing it was basically the gist of it. And
Mm,
I felt such resonance with that. And
mm,
there's another book that I read, and I don't know if it still is probably still out there somewhere. It was a man named J. Donald Walters, and he changed the title, but I think the one that I remember was Art as a Hidden Reality. And that was one of my early explorations into the idea that, he actually kind of came out and said, um, pretty dramatically that, certain abstract things that don't have meaning, that the artist is actually in creating it is anti-meaning, that their approach is to create chaos or just to challenge people's reality, that to him he came out and basically said that's not art.
mm,
And it was quite a statement, but I resonated with that feeling of if it's not communicating something, not, resonant of beauty, of wisdom, then then it really shouldn't be called art. And I thought that was pretty profound and actually, really radical to say that. But
mm.
but
Well,
some of the art that we see in the world, it's like you go, well, what does that mean? And why would I, pay millions of dollars for that like people do? sometimes because it's anti-expression.
Yeah. No, it's the power. There's a magic in the art. And this is why Plato, as I often remind people, that he said people who don't really know Plato acted like he gave the arts a hard time, and he didn't. He just said we can't have artists who don't make work that opens people toward wisdom, love, and beauty. And that's all. He was just saying it's too powerful. So the artists really have to have some cultivation of compassion, of wisdom,
Hmm.
of clarity about the meaning of life and the potentials for human beings, so that as they are beginning to open to those meanings, they kind of know what they're about, and they're really listening to Sophia, who knows more than they do, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's really. Can we share another? I wanted to just share because we had been talking about the shamans and we're in history now, and I wanted to take a look at two somewhat we could call them kind of historical in a way. I really love this one, the one that you mentioned, because anytime I pick up the calligraphy brush and I do horses, they look like they come from caves.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's just
Yes.
my own style. So I also just really love this because it reminds us of that womb of Mother Earth, and it reminds us that our ancestors were really, really, at least those of us from the dominant culture. It's arguable about what happened on Turtle Island. We won't get into that right now, but for the dominant culture, our ancestors really were so intimately related with horses. Can you talk a little bit about this as one of the cards from the deck?
Yes. And I also have been always drawn to the cave horses and the cave paintings, and hadn't researched them actually until I went to write this book with Sandra. But some of the things that were fascinating to me in researching it, t putting the intuition into what's actually been part of our history, and I'm not one for facts and figures, but I think it was like 40,000 years ago that the domestication of the horse happened. So you could correct me if I'm wrong on that, but the fact that that these cave paintings and that the horse was the most popular animal in the cave paintings in the different caves was not only because they were sometimes prey to those people, but actually was much of the research has shown that it's because they were revered and that the animals that were depicted in the caves were the ones that the people most were thinking of as powerful and something that they wanted to embody or express in that power. And so in this painting, I did research some of the different most famous cave paintings and kind of made my own cave painting because I didn't want to copy, exactly one of the horses from those very highly copyrighted images. So I just wanted to depict that feeling, and it was fun for me because my early work I called spirit sketches that I still do, but what awakened the horse in my art was a process of seeing horses in motion and trying to um, condense that energy into something that was more fluid and moving rather than a realistic interpretation. And so I likened those sketches to the cave art, and so it was fun for me to put myself in the role. In some ways, I was almost channeling or shamanically embodying the feeling of the artists of that time rather than the horses necessarily. So that was, I hadn't really put that into thought until now, but I was really evoking that sensation of what would it be like to be in a dark cave with only firelight to paint from and to be working with your hands in odd and difficult places and away from the sun for who knows how long while they're creating these over maybe even years of work. And I was so inspired by the concept too that the artists of the community they say were so revered at that time that that if they were tribal as tribal members, their duties of being hunter-gatherers or contributing to the tribe were set aside so that they could do their work. And I thought that was really a profound observation on the part of the researchers. And So I created even the texture of the pastel to me is very earth-like, and it's made of mica and earth-based pigments held together by just something, the binding that holds it together. So I it was very evocative for me to create the wall of the cave painting on the wall, and then take it to the next level, which is the spirit horses coming out of the drawing.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful because in a way, I really like that idea that this is us trying to see what our ancestors were seeing when they saw the horse and tried to convey it to themselves. But then the other, so that's almost like that's what the first horse on the left image is, and it's if the other two horses were are also like the horses looking back at us as we try to do this and try to lead us.
You're
Almost,
right.
there's like a whole
Yes.
loop, and it's really also reminds us of the evolution, which. Okay, it's a little bit off because you're right. So the art goes back a pretty long way.
Right.
It's because stallions are so fierce. It was not easy to capture stallions and to control the situation. So there was a major genetic shift, and this goes into the discussion about whether riding is even okay, because horses for sure did not evolve to carry beings on their back. And so their structure, although to us there's something in us that looks like, oh yes, I can do that, but I think that's that tool mind
Uh-huh.
largely. But at any rate, about 3,500, 5,000 years ago, there was a genetic shift toward a back that could do better with a person on it. So
Wow.
there is something you could say in that way because it's nuanced. The next image we'll get to is the dawn horse, and you could say that our ancient mammalian ancestors were actually a little tiny, something like the size of a mouse, or they were around with Eohippus. And then
Hmm.
we left Turtle Island and ended up in Europe and Africa, and that is still being debated how that even unfolded. There's some evidence that were some ancient humans in Europe, but at any rate, that little being probably went to Africa, and then the Eohippus kind of continued to evolve mainly here. But the reason I'm saying all that is that there's a way in which we made this newer horse, and that horse is younger, even though it has that ancient lineage that we want to honor. I mean, it's reasonable to think of them as our elders, and at the same time, we need to recognize that we did make a change,
Right.
and so that's maybe 3,500, 5,000 years ago. But
Interesting.
this is so beautiful, and I love too how you can see other beings in there. I see a
Yes.
bull and a bear and some big cats.
Yep.
You did that on purpose? You're there.
I did,
Okay.
and as is it the case in my work that evolved over the last many years, was I began seeing images in
Yeah.
the picture I was working from that was of a wall of the cave, and the cracks started to take shape, and so
Mm,
I just allowed whatever that was forming to form, and
mm.
followed the guidance of the image.
I love that.
Mhm.
And I'll
Yeah.
say here too a reminder of something that I've tried to say before, which is Claude Lévi-Strauss's line that, and you were touching on it, that the image is there not because horses were good to eat, but as he put it, they were good to think.
Yes,
And
exactly.
that's a very different notion than think horse that you find in the old, the kind of first early generation of riding teachers. But there was that idea what does it mean to think horse? And that is touching on the notion of a larger ecology of mind. It means that I stop trying to be the one who's doing it or produce the thought, and I allow something else to think through me.
Hmm.
And your deck is really like a record of all the different qualities of that archetype, that it can take so many forms as we allow it to think itself through us. It's
Right.
really powerful. Let's look at that dawn horse, though.
Yeah.
See, wait, I thought it was the next one. Oh, it was always the previous one, I think. There it is.
There, yeah.
There's the Eohippus. Now that looks a little different than the horse we're used to, and that was a little being and bigger than we were because we were tiny too. We were tiny, but this was like house cat size, I think, something like that.
Yes. Yeah. That was again something I poured my heart and soul into wanting to know more about, and having not actually been in the presence of one of the skeletons, but looking at, pictures of them, I just wanted to know more about this creature. And someone when I was beginning working on this concept for the card deck, they said, "Well, why would I be interested in Eohippus? It's not even a horse yet." And I was like, "Yeah, but it's going to be, you know." And the fact that it's this little creature that is so long ago but preceded us, and that we have this incredible relationship with horses that in our societies and our cultures that touches on pretty much everyone, whether they've ever encountered a horse or not. It's just fascinating to me.
Mm, yeah, it's amazing. And so this being helped to create Turtle Island because they would have been massive eventually as they got bigger and bigger. But we still think in terms of organisms and environment, but there's a total interwovenness there in
Hmm.
which each thing mutually specifies and mutually develops. So Turtle Island looked the way it ended up looking millions of years after this because of the presence of of these beings.
Right. And
Yeah.
I actually never thought of it that way until I listened to your podcast and heard you're expressing that. And as you're saying that, it's intriguing to me too because I didn't know why I chose this sort of earth pattern in the drawing, but it was like a riverbed, and it allowed me also to convey the footprints and the hoof prints of the genealogical, tracing from the Eohippus to the horse, and but also the earth part of it is intriguing to think about.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, there are the branches of the tree of life and the entwining that we are. Dogen has this image of entwining vines. He said that life is just entanglements or entwinings. It's like vines that are all twined up. That's what our life is. And sages, he said, transmit those entwinings. And this
Mm,
is an image of that entwining of the past and the future. But then also that tree of life reminds us that, as Darwin tried to show, we're not by ourselves. We are entwined. And so it would be nice to have the vine of life, but the tree is an important image too. And
right.
that really conveys that, how we're entwined with these beings. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing that also was intriguing to me was the oh, what was I going to say? The Eohippus. Oh gosh, it just jumped out of my head. Um, yeah, let's go back to it. It'll come.
Oops, sorry. Oh, there we
There we
okay.
go, land on Dharma.
Yeah, that sounds like a good place to land anyway. I really love this image because, of course, you have the lotus and you have, I love that you put dragonfly in there because she's a very precious spirit being too.
Hmm.
And the lotus and then because, which is so resonant with Dharma. And that's really wonderful. What would you like to tell us about this
Sure.
one?
Yeah, this is my mare Dharma, whose name was spelled Darma, and for years actually I thought, well, they just misspelled it, but then I found there is actually a version of the word Dharma spelled without the H. But she was a racehorse given that name. I don't know any of her, the people that bred her and why they gave her that name, but she certainly was my Dharma as well. And I met her at the racetrack, and so this card began to interpret her path in life and how she influenced my path, and I did some research about Dharma, what Dharma represents, and one of the concepts is the end of suffering. The concept of the wheel of life, and that one of our tasks here is to try to find our peace. And she went about her life and my life with her. That was one of our main themes, and my my seeking to help her find her peace was really what led me to all of what we're doing here, what we're talking about, and who I am as an artist, who I am as a person. She is now passed, and all of her uh, beauty and wisdom and kindness and fire and the ways that she would have been if she hadn't been traumatized. And trauma has so many forms and it isn't always visible. though she did have a fractured knee, so there was physical, uh, pain and restriction in her that caused a lot of her physical, mental, emotional pain later in life. But she did find a measure of peace because of the love that we had for each other, and like you read in my bio, the founding our farm to uh, bringing her here, and then finding other animals that needed rescuing in one form or another. Um, was a life we had never really, my husband and I had never really foreseen. We just thought we had a horse and a dog and a cat, and that was it, and pretty soon we had, upwards of, I think at the most I ever had on the property was 21 at one time. And that happened within about, 5 years of moving here. So it was pretty rapid evolution. And so the painting is allows the reader and the viewer to find that peace with her that sometimes eluded her in life, and now I know she is at peace and continues to be my ally in spirit.
Mm, that's really beautiful. Yeah, the meanings of Dharma are somewhat varied. They include the just reality. Dharma is reality. Dharma is also, it indicates held. And I like to say that what that means is that what can hold us. So if there are teachings that are big enough to hold us, especially when we're having a difficult time, and ultimately only reality can hold us. So it's what can we have refuge in? It's what can hold us, and we can hold each other. So you two were a refuge, and we're holding each other in this life in an important way. So that's also, and then as you note, it's relates to path as well.
Hmm.
That's our path through life, and all that's really really powerful. And of course, Buddha began his great journey on horseback.
Right.
Yeah, and so you see this as your deck brings out through this. As I mentioned before, we don't see archetypes, but we see expressions, images, and all these different images of the horses: Buddha's horse, your horse, Muhammad's horse, the kelpie. They are ways of seeing some of the fullness of the ever invisible archetype that the horse is expressing. And this is a really nice image of it because there's that beautiful piece. And I love Thich Nhat Hanh's teaching, no mud, no lotus.
Hmm.
And we have this very traumatizing culture, and we of course have had a trauma narrative and discourse that developed around that as a way we're trying to help ourselves, but the wisdom traditions also invite us to say, well, if you, instead of trauma informed spiritual practice, you could have spiritually informed trauma. And that would maybe help us to let go of the trauma discourse itself. Not the healing we need, but that somehow maybe it could help us to heal.
Right.
And so this feels to me so much like an image of refreshing healing. It feels really nice. What is there anything else you'd like to say about it? I can move to another image, but
Yeah, I was trying to understand what that meant, trauma informed healing. uh can you expand on that a little bit?
yeah, well, what we have found in the dominant culture is that we're really good at producing a set of symptoms, or you could say experiences that we've given this word trauma. And so veterans experience it when they come back. They have post-traumatic stress disorder. That's a trauma response, a trauma experience. People have experienced abuse in various ways, including, and it's very important to recognize that it's almost like, I mean, we couldn't have caused as much trauma if we didn't use horses to do it historically.
Hmm.
And we traumatized horses in order to do it. And it's
Right.
almost like maybe human beings have had slaves before, or in the absence of horses, but it's almost like somehow the horse was a model and a vehicle for enslaving and traumatizing other
Hmm.
beings,
Hmm.
dominating them. So now in this discourse, what has happened is, for instance, if someone wanted to go to a mindfulness retreat, which you shouldn't do because you shouldn't just go meditate, but because you shouldn't do that, then people discovered that someone with a history of trauma could actually re-enter the trauma experience through their spiritual practice. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
unintentionally, and that's not what you want, because then you could have all kinds of difficult things that are coming up. And so then the idea was, oh, well, we can't provide spiritual instruction unless it's trauma informed, which means that we try to adjust to help people so that they can get the tools they need to heal. But the reason I brought up Thich Nhat Hanh in particular is that he was had to practice in the middle of a war zone where really, really horrific things happened. And he didn't use the narrative of trauma, but what he did was he helped people to bring a holistic spiritual teaching and set of practices to that work of healing, so that it didn't require an extra new set of discourses about trauma, but you could that the wisdom traditions, in other words, could be responsive to this without
Right.
needing the kind of technical, almost medical descriptions that we sometimes use. Now, anytime we talk about this, I want to say I acknowledge this is a traumatizing culture, and a lot of people are traumatized. And here's a being you're looking at a being, because it's just like we do it to wolves. We do it. I mean, it's not we don't leave ourselves out, but we also don't leave anybody else out either.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, we do need to heal. The horse can help us in so many ways, in part because they don't have any of that discourse, but they know where the healing is, and they can also help us do it. Is I think there's a lot of nuance that we need, because even in and you know this, because you've done this sort of work yourself with horses. We can work with them in a healing way. We have to make sure that we don't, after everything else they've carried for us, if we start putting our emotional burdens on them, even accidentally,
Right.
we may not want to do that. But if we don't really learn how to be with them with a holistic practice of life, then we will accidentally put too much on them.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, I
Everything
don't know
in
if that makes
balance.
sense.
No, it
Yeah.
does. And what I was intrigued by was the idea where I went with it in my thoughts was one of my questions of Dharma and of myself have been often, um, you know, sh later in her life, she began experiencing a lot more of the expression of her traumas as she aged. And I know there was, physical reasons for that and such. But as you were speaking, I thought uh, that perhaps, um, I mean, I know that my intention of bringing her here and to create this peaceful sanctuary for her was to help her heal. And sometimes what that looks like is the trauma resurfacing, even later in life when I thought that she had overcome a lot of that. And so it's interesting to think of um, the idea of, trauma coming up again to be healed, even in a peaceful surrounding. That was intriguing.
Yeah, and that's often what can trigger it, because there is a protective mechanism, that's kind of keeping an increased vigilance. And as the person relaxes, say because they're trying to meditate, that relaxing suddenly, this whole reminder of I might not be safe, it comes up.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
fascinating.
and
Yeah,
how do we hold that? And I think as we get better at doing the work we need to do, and we learn more from the wisdom traditions about the medicine of compassion, then we'll get better at helping people with that. I mean, it happens even if I work with clients, it can happen. And
sure.
I may not resemble in any way, shape, or form what traumatized them. And it may be that I'm not going into the trauma memory. It might
Hmm.
be some other experience, but because the recent whatever it was echoed the trauma, then they can really start to have difficulty.
Yeah,
So I realized that there's no easy way around this. We all do have to slow down even more. And so it's been a good humbling process for me to see how much we really have to slow down and help each other heal, and be
right.
really committed to staying in relation with each other too, and trying to get through it. Because you can see the craziness in the U.S.
Hmm.
With the election. There was so much intensity, and there's so much division. And this is such a beautiful image of, well, it doesn't have to be there.
Right.
I really like that. It's just beautiful. Maybe
Thank
we
you.
can look a little further.
Hmm.
Here's the myth. This is almost like your depiction of the Uber archetype. Right?
Yeah, we
This
call him
is
the meta archetype.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. That's one way. That's what I think of as Sophia, is that Sophia is she is what every other thing is trying to express. So that's the
I was going
horse
to
and that's
ask you what that
Sophia
was. Yes,
back to the,
yes.
okay. So,
Yeah, this was an epitome for both Sandra and I because we were co-creating this deck and beginning the process of defining it for ourselves. And one of the one of the most powerful experiences was when we meditated with the consciousness of horse and asked, what is this deck? What can we bring, and condense down into the information about the horse? And we both had similar impressions of a being that had imagery playing on his form, like movies or writings or pictures kind of playing across his form, not indelibly imprinted like tattoos, but more like, just coming and going. And it was so fascinating that we both had the same impressions. And so if you look closely, you can see there's languages. And what I chose to depict that imagery was the five ancient languages that were cultures that had the horse, Greek and Sanskrit and Viking, runes, and Chinese and Indian. And there could have been more, but it was, still allowing the horse to be his sovereign beauty as well. And the feeling of the art to me was also of memory. I was moved to paint the colors, just a very monochromatic image that was like the past, but it's more like memory and like that's in the spirit realm. Even though there's, clearly a realm there of water and earth.
hmm, that's really what I like too is it evokes a little bit for me. I don't did I put the when I gave you that excerpt, did it have the poem about the horse in it?
I'm
About
not
with the
sure.
hieroglyph? The
No,
hieroglyphs on the flesh of the horse. I'll have to
no.
I'll have to share that with you because that's really funny.
Oh,
I did, only now where you're saying that I was thinking, oh, that's funny. I thought it was at the very end of the excerpt, but I might not have included it.
it might have been, but I don't
Yeah.
recall that because I would have my ears would have pricked up,
What's
you
so
know.
funny about it too is that I'll see if I can pull it up while I'm talking. But partly what's funny about it is that it is about like the first seeing of a horse. So it really is resonated.
Wow.
But I don't know if I'll find it. I'll have to.
And that's the kind of the way I felt about this art too. I painted him as if, to me, he's like, coming from the sea and emerging onto the shore and of consciousness or something.
Mm,
And the feeling that we had and what we write about in the essay about him, I could read a little bit about that too, if we'd like. But was that, that our consciousness about the horse from the past, from the now and the future is evolving with the horse, and that he reflects that evolution in everything that's coming through and around and within him. So him and her. And so there's this dialogue between us, that the connection between humanity and the horse is ongoing and has uh, not just a finite, the past or the present, our definitions and how we try to freeze things in time, that an archetype and a myth can be fluid and mutable is the way we write it.
hmm Well, one of the things that reminds me, I'll have you, you can read from that excerpt and then I'll say well, so I did find the poem, so I'll read you just
Great.
briefly, but there's something else I want to note about the image. So anyway, so this is the poem. It says, there is a horse, the first feeling, seeing the horse is sublime. The horse is seeing, seeing itself. the sacred beauty and awe that rides a current of terror or wonder, or both. In this case, by the way, this one's black. Yours is white, so I like that actually.
Hmm. Hmm.
Shimmering black mare, impossible, obsidian come to life, the dark of night on four graceful legs, so plainly impossible in the most practical and thus most poetic sense. What is a horse doing in the garden? Where could she have come from? What place could give birth to her? He wants to run up to her, run to the horse. From where he stands, he thinks the mare has a brand on her neck, a brand that looks like a hieroglyph. A hieroglyphic horse, galloping midnight with a sacred mantra inscribed on her radiant body. What would you write on the skin of night? What would you want people to read from the flesh of darkness and light? The mare feels the tender wings of his sincerity and attention, and turns her luminous gaze. The man feels the mare's feeling, his wide-open soul. He is not a foolish man. He doesn't drown himself in the ignorance that ignores sentience. He knows and does not know that the horse lives and breathes, not knowing. This inconceivable horse, her noble neighing, conjures fields of awakening. Her snort blows out the candle of ignorance. Her nickering frees beings from hell realms. Her sigh presences the peace hidden in every moment. Her hooves drum out the thundering silence. Primordial space appearing solid. Mandala of all good qualities. Song of wisdom, love, and beauty. A cosmos made in her image. Her radiant body, the original mind as a magical display, resplendent, all creating mystery. So that was my mythic horse. That was the.
Mm.
But what I want to honor about your image too is there are two things that I think are so important. I love that yours is white, and that the water evokes the dominant culture myth that Poseidon is the father of all horses, and of course the
Right.
special horse Pegasus, but is the father of horses, which is so profound. I just encourage people to really sit with that, that the
Yeah.
god of the sea is the father of horses. And then you have the mountain and what Chogyam Trungpa, I think, would see as the great eastern sun. That this is the image of our own enlightenment coming out of the unconsciousness, which is the waters, and the creativity, and leaping as if she could just leap into the air, but she's unafraid to be on the ground. No duality between that, the sort of spiritual and the mundane. Okay, so that's all I
Oh
wanted to
my
say. I really
gosh.
like that image.
I could just dive into all of that. That's that everything you spoke of and wrote there is just right where I dream I exist. That's the horse uh to me. Definitely all of those beautiful words and concepts. And I think that actually was in what you sent me. And what's interesting is, isn't it fascinating how we don't always catch, it's like doing a card reading. You don't always see every word or everything and relate it to the thing that, unless you're asking the question and you're looking for that specific. So I missed the hieroglyph and the skin theme, but wow, that's just beautiful and profound. So it's almost like mirror images. You've got the dark mare and I've got the white stallion
Hmm.
uh, in this interpretation. Yeah.
I love that too because you need it really. For me, Sophia is the non-dual, but it's important to give her feminine presence because of
Hmm.
the imbalance that we have. But she
Right.
is the non-dual. So the mare really is like Sophia, and but in the I really love how the Buddhist tradition sees wisdom as feminine and compassion is masculine, because of course our tendency is, oh no, the mother is the model of compassion, and this tradition is saying yes, that's right, but it is a masculine energy because of its activeness. So
Mm-hmm.
it's so good that you put that there because it's such a compliment. Even I feel we have a nice connection. I'd
Yeah.
love to put that image in the poem next to each other because it's really the masculine and feminine coming together, and that's also why I have there's a masculine figure seeing the horse, who could be an
Yes.
ancient shaman, but is also supposed to be like Socrates and I, that we are seeing Sophia and love her. Okay,
hmm
so well,
hmm
would you read a little bit from your write-up on the Mythic Course?
Yeah. So much of the book we collaborated on. Some of the essays Sandra wrote and some I wrote. So it was a beautiful collaboration. And so Mythic Course is, and I have to put my little glasses on. I'm getting to be to the point where I have to wear reading glasses.
That's okay. That's wisdom coming in.
I've learned that because I miss the words if I don't see it, right?
Yeah.
So let's see. And yes, the cards have been so delightful. The Inner Traditions published it, and it's just been so beautiful to have such a supportive publisher who really saw our vision and honored it. Um,
Hmm.
so within the each card essay, we s- we invited the horse to speak for themselves. So the each card reading is from the horse's voice, and so he says. I am the mythic horse, the material and the immaterial expression of all horses who have been, who are, and those still to come. My presence brings awareness to the ancient bond that has bound horses and humans together for millennia. Ours is a connection of sacred reciprocity. I am the meta archetype of Equus and the overarching archetype from which all others are formed. You have been taught to think that a myth or archetype is symbolic and frozen in time, but I am fluid and mutable and deeply affected by the relationship you have with my kind. My pearl white coat is a blank canvas that is adorned with the written words and artistic expressions that humankind has created about horses throughout time. Herein lies your sacred responsibility. I implore you to be impeccable with your words and thoughts about horses, for as soon as you write them down, say them, or think them, they can inspire or inhibit my liminal and physical form. As the infinite expression of horse consciousness, I evolve symbiotically with the consciousness of humanity. Through the process of morphogenesis, my form is co-created by the myths, stories, and legends that earthly and heavenly horses have inspired in the visioning hearts of humankind. From your love, attention, and intention, I evolve.
Hmm.
And then the essay goes on to describe how he can guide you in this process of unfolding your own myth and helping you release the reverence that you hold for order and convention and some guidance into questions to ask yourself about how to take this energy and bring it into your life. So
Hmm.
yes, it was a beautiful beginning and really informed a lot of what the book was to be.
Hmm. Yeah, I really like that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I am going to, how about this? Would you like to pull three cards that would
Oh yes,
help us to kind of give us a
absolutely.
reading for
That's
anybody?
always a good idea.
If you're listening now, this is, we're going to, however you'd like to frame it, but what is it the horses maybe would really like people to know right now as they're listening
Yeah.
to this?
Like what wisdom, could be brought to our attention that we've been, beautifully circling uh, this amazing concept of humanity and horses and what their role is and what the listeners maybe need to hear and understand about that guidance for themselves.
Hmm.
And what's beautiful is that those, even in a group reading, that every message can be universal. That's what's so incredible about, like you said, about the idea of doing a card reading.
Hmm.
So I'm spreading them out. And let me think also before I pick the cards. So we have some guidance in the deck about ways to do readings. Obviously, you can just pick a card. You can just be very intuitive about the journey, but there's some really wonderful sample readings that give a little bit more focus to the reading. So
Hmm.
let me see which one seems appropriate for now. I think what I would choose would be so Chiron's way is Chiron is the centaur who was as we write in the book here, as a centaur, Chiron is half man and half horse. We can show him as well. Um, he balances his equine qualities, a connection to the earth, the somatic, the instinctual, and the powerful subconscious, with his human qualities, the conscious mind, intellect, creative innovation, and thought. And so the three cards for this spread would be the first card is the gift of the horse. What does the body, gut, or instinct want us to understand about this question, I would say, situation or question? The gift of the human. So what does our mind, thoughts, or intellect want us to understand about the the guidance of the question of what the horse brings us? And what the gift of the centaur, what do we need to integrate about the horse and human consciousness? So I've kind of paraphrased some of those to wrap our question into that. So that would be really lovely. Okay, so the first card is the gift of the horse. And how I pick cards is I usually just spread them out and see when my fingers run across them which one I want to stop at.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. And you can't pick a wrong card. That's the other beautiful thing. But what's fascinating about cards is you tend to pick the same similar ones. Like sometimes you'll have a deck and you'll never pick certain cards.
Hmm.
It's always so interesting.
Yeah, for those of you who are not familiar with using these sorts of practices, the idea here is that the deck, part of the reason why you allow to focus your mind, the example I always give is if you have a dowser and I ask you to find an object and you consciously you would say, well, I don't know where it's at. And so when I give you the dowsing pendulum or the dowsing rod, given that you have to look at it to see how it's moving, that distracts the part of you that knows it doesn't know the answer and would try to produce one or would try to argue. So it is, see, now I have the cars, and that, of course, I don't know the answer to what's the most important thing for us to know right now. Or I don't know what it is, how I should think about this new job, or, should I pursue it? Okay, admit you don't know. And we give your conscious mind something to look at and a process. Pick these cards. Okay, I'll do that. And then the knowing happens by itself, sort of in
Wow.
spite of you. That's the way, that's kind of
So
what we're
true.
doing. Yeah.
That's exactly right. I love how you put things into words. I go, yes, exactly. Okay, so the cards that I picked were for the gift of the horse, and it's always hard to show these because they're a little bit shiny. Actually, what I'd like to do is, well, you tell me if you can see them. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the first one, which is called Choctaw Ponies. Now, does that show you, can you read it or is it backwards
No,
when you,
yeah, I can see it. It says
okay,
chocolate. Now your
perfect.
YouTube people, I think you can read it, but it's okay. We can
Yeah,
put maybe we can put some links or something
right.
for anybody who wants to follow up. Okay, so we got the Choctaw
Choctaw
ponies.
Ponies,
I
which
like that.
stands for Return to Freedom, which is
Ha ha
very
ha
fitting
ha.
to you.
Where I was philosopher in residence, Return to Freedom,
Yes,
and yes, we had beautiful Choctaws down there.
Choctaw Ponies. Yep.
Hmm.
And I've been there as well, and very very grateful to have experienced that and those beautiful horses. This is actually Sandra's artwork. She contributed two paintings to the deck, and we collaborated on a third. So this is another horse from Return to Freedom. His name was Sutter, and he stands for Ambassador Invincibility of Spirit, and he will be the placeholder for the human
Mm.
guidance.
Ambassador. That's really important for us now as
Yes,
we're looking at wars in the world and looking at wars within our own souls and between humans and nature. Well,
right.
that's important for our mind to really get around that we're supposed to be an ambassador of goodwill and peace and Okay. Anyway,
Hmm.
go. I'm getting
Yes,
ahead. I'm
he's
already.
going running with it. And then the last card is Forgotten Ones. Actually, all of these cards
Hmm.
are horses from Return to Freedom, so it's actually quite amazing
Look at that.
to recognize that. This
Yeah.
was an image. The photograph of these two horses was taken by Sandra, and then they were one of these horses was crippled, probably in a roundup, and yet he's so resilient and so such a survivor, and was living, living, breathing, traveling the path of life with this very bent leg. So we both felt this was a good example of
Mm,
the forgotten ones. And
that's
then
beautiful.
the trees and the mist and everything was what unfolded in my co-creative process with it.
That's beautiful. So the and behind me is the dangerous wisdom. This is the dangerous wisdom stallion. That horse is from Return to Freedom.
Yes.
But
Which
that's so
which
wonderful.
horse was that?
Well, the humans. I sometimes I actually going to
Don't
do a
always have
whole.
the names.
They well yeah well I it's not bad but
Yeah.
they call him Tomahawk.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Super intense guy. I
Right.
mean, he is really like it's a good name because he is the knife edge of wildness. I mean, he is just really wow, a
Yeah. Oh
very
my
impressive,
gosh.
super impressive being. So anyway, but I wanted to do an episode sort of meditating on what he symbolizes, in part the forgotten ones. So I really like that,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that is our future. The way the line is, the future has an ancient heart. The future has an ancient heart, and that was made famous. Now I've forgotten. It was an Italian writer, but this idea that somehow we have to re-indigenize. And
Right.
all of us have forgotten our indigenous ancestors. Even some, I don't, not in an insulting way, but the way some indigenous leaders have said, well, we got destabilized too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a destabilizing force. It infected all of you and you destabilized other people with it. And so we too have to kind of remember that come back to the ancient heart, that timeless heart in a way. The Buddha mind or the horse mind is timeless.
Yes.
So that's so wonderful. Okay, I'll let you do the reading, and then
No,
I can
no,
add
I
any
love
other
it's
philosophers.
it's a co-creative process, and with
Yes.
the horses too, obviously. Yeah, so the first horse, the gift of the horse, first card, I should say. So what does the horse's body, excuse me, what does our body, gut, or instinct want us to understand about the situation of the horse-human dynamic? And that was the Choctaw ponies.
Mm,
So I'll just land on whatever jumps out at me as to relevant to this question. So that just to give a little history as part of what the reading says is um, so the key phrases are hope, resilience, and living purposefully. So so my kitty's going to give me some guidance here too. He says, "I want something." Okay. Uh, so interesting. So the story from the Choctaw Ponies is talking about when life was a place of happiness, the women were the horse keepers. We carried them like a summer breeze under a cloud along the good red road. And so that's interesting to bring up the feminine guidance from the horse. And it's about being relocated. And so the horse, I mean, really, when, I don't know, there's hardly very few horses that are allowed to live out their life in the place that they were born, much less where their species was born or where their herd was born. And even the wild ones, of course, are the most relocated in such traumatic ways. So, what would the horses like us to become aware of? It says, if you have drawn us into your life today, we are meant to help you travel from any path or choice that has separated you from your purpose onto what our people call the good red road. This road signifies a deep commitment to following a purposeful path while maintaining intrinsic respect for yourself, each other, and all of creation. It means turning away from anything or anyone that brings or does harm.
mm. Wow. That's really the whole of our problem. Right there it
Yep,
is.
yep,
We lose our own sacred purpose. We get put to the purposes of the culture, which is also why I don't like talk of tools, because every single one of us is a tool to the capitalist machinery.
Hmm.
And so we get put to somebody else's purposes. So you've lost your purpose, and then you are off the good road, the good path, which is Dharma, right? That's the good path.
Right.
And right, and can we turn away from violence? Can we turn away from harm? Even the little harms of buying too many things in plastic or expending too many resources. And certainly there's so many jobs that people, it would be better off if we paid them to stay home and take
Hmm.
care of horses or something.
Right.
So wow, that really does capture what I bet the horses would want us to think about, that we've lost our way and we could return to freedom. I love that.
Yes.
You've carried the burden of tears long enough. It's time to return to freedom. And this goes with a dialogue I was just having about, how we resolve these problems in the world, especially the ecological, economic problems. And we were talking about how so much of it is the sense that we're going to have to give up all these things and it's going to suck. And what we were touching on, Leah Rampey and I look for that one, everybody. I don't know if it's going to come out before this one or after, even though I recorded it, depends.
Hmm.
But we were saying, what if we started to realize that this is the austerity, and that we're so terrified, like we can't, there's no alternative to what we have. But what if we will realize this is the austerity, and there's actually so much to gain if we would return to that road of wisdom, love, and beauty.
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah,
just,
that everything that we're looking for is not this.
yeah, I
That
know.
I heard something like that the other day. I of course don't remember the words, but it was something about referring to everyone is seeking, like three main things, health, wealth, and whatever. And the people that find all of that are almost the most, compromised because then they get there to that achievement and then they go, well, this is it. Why am I not feeling fulfilled?
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's right. That's right. And they're telling, the horses are telling us. And I always tell people, look, Adam Smith also said it. How many times do I have to say? He said it. He said there's two paths. So this really resonates with which path you're on. He said there are two paths. The only thing that could make us truly happy, truly peaceful, is the path of wisdom, love, and beauty. But I think we should do this other thing. It's the most extraordinary expression of anybody. I know this is the only thing that would truly make us happy, but if we do this economic thing, at least everybody, will have stuff, and
Right.
it's really weird, as if we couldn't cooperate on the path of virtue. And okay, so then what is the human
Yes.
gift?
So the
Is the
human gift
ambassador. I
is the
love this.
ambassador.
Oh, look at that. It's pretty. We have a good gift, everybody. Our card is a good one.
Which is, I was just going to say, it's not necessarily a quality that we tend to consider humanity has, but certainly there are gifted members of humanity that have really embodied this, and the horse teaches us how to embody it, which of course is what Chiron is about as well.
Mm, mm,
Um, so, without going into too much of the detail of this beautiful essay, uh, Sutter's gift was such an amazing gift because he went through so much trauma. He
mm,
was literally tortured, trying to domesticate him.
mm,
He was a horse caught in a roundup and then just barbarically tortured. And
mm,
despite that, when he was rescued and he began to trust again, he says, when he was able to reclaim himself, he says when he went to his new place where he was brought, which was probably Return to Freedom. He might have had an interim place. I don't know his history, but he says there people treated me with kindness. They called me Sutter. I began to trust and to come back into myself. My return was consolidated in the company of gentle souls and in the welcoming laughter of children. My body could once again provide a haven for my spirit, and my heart, instead of freezing with fear or thundering under an assault, began to beat with love. I was returned to freedom. Also, there's that theme again.
there it is. And the
Yeah,
hieroglyph, because
right.
he's got something written on his
He
skin, which is the
does.
the famous brand.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, I've just got
Oh,
chills.
and the trauma, we were talking about trauma, and I love that you at the beginning you have these more beautiful keywords: resilience, trans species healing, everybody.
Hmm.
We can't heal at the expense of the other beings. And then radical forgiveness, even in the darkest places, love can be the light. Out of suffering, the strongest souls emerge. Invincibility of spirit, which is what the wisdom traditions really actually try to reveal to us, is that we are, that's why Buddha's name is the victor. He's invincible, but what's he the victor of? No battle. He's the victor of over ignorance.
Hmm.
So the
Hmm.
ultimate invincibility. Oh, that's so wonderful. I love that. And I love that it's ambassador. That is a great card. Everybody, this is the reading I hope you will take to heart. Okay, then can we say what is the
Well, and what's so
Chiron?
interesting
Oh,
is
yeah.
if we change the words, since we're doing a group reading, so
Mm,
that
mm,
was a bit of his story, but if we
mm,
change the words of the council, so it's broken into my story as Ambassador
mm.
Sutter and counsel from Ambassador. So
Yeah.
our our inner and outer scars are testaments to our soul's courage, signs of resilience and survival, and our willingness to be alive. We can
Oh,
talk to them, weep for them, pray about them, cradle them, hide them, or and try to anesthetize them, and do our best to curate all the appropriate sorrows and fierce rememberings they require. But then what? There needs to be a reconnection of sorts, a calling
resurrection.
home. Sorry, a resurrection of
No, I
sorts.
like it. That's a good word. I really, both are
Those
true. Okay.
glasses. A calling home of things abandoned. And so that is such a beautiful reminder that humanity has this opportunity to recognize the scars, but the signs of resilience and survival. And what's so beautiful about Sutter's story is he literally became um, the ambassador of Return to Freedom and of wild horses, and he was voted. I'm afraid I can't remember the award, but he was voted like by the horse a big horse council as one of the greatest horses in culturally because of his gift of he was just such an incredibly kind and loving horse to all humans despite what
Mm.
he'd been through. So,
Oh,
you
my
know,
goodness.
that's
I love
taking
it.
the turn the other cheek and making it a life's calling.
Yeah, and I love that within you see we got a thread drawn, everybody. This shows us the synchronicities that begin to happen. So we have these. I know for some of you, you may not feel so much because you didn't live at Return to Freedom like I did. But so I feel a lot of strong synchronicity, but on your behalf, because I only do this for you. It's not for me. So I really hope you will appreciate this. But I love that there's a thread, a calling home of things abandoned, and we just had forgotten ones. So this really takes the thread forward. I really like that. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
And
Now,
then
what is the
interestingly, the forgotten ones again is the integration of the human and the horse in our psyche.
um
So let's see what that has to offer us.
mhm.
So,
Oh, that's even better than what I was saying because we actually the frog yes, that's the Choctaw ones that were the other one, and they were telling us to return to what we forgot about, our forgotten road.
mhm,
And then this one is yes, saying that we can really actually go back to not forgetting. Oh my goodness. Never forget who you are. That's what mindfulness means, sati. You actually
yes.
remember what you are. Oh my goodness. Okay, you go ahead. Read.
No, it's all wonderful. I love it. I actually love hearing it in when other people read it because it's like, did we write that? Yes, and so what's interesting to me about this is it to me it brings along the forgotten ones are the horses who have been unwanted or pushed out to the edges of existence and elegies of possibilities lost. So who are the forgotten ones in our cultural connection with horses? Both horse and human both have this story of those who were left behind and which parts of our culture have been left behind, what parts are now being left behind as we, pursue this bizarre path. And so what needs to be reclaimed and what is the endurance and the beauty of those cultures and those parts of us that we have left behind that are still waiting to be recognized. And once they are, the counsel from the forgotten ones is um, there's something you as a culture, you as the being, integrated being, are trying to hide or hide away from. And but there's a part of you that's been forgotten. Part of
Mm,
our and my cat says, "Yes, I've
mm,
been forgotten. You have to feed me now."
mhm. No, yeah, I love that. Yes, there's parts of us that have been forgotten, and the horse symbolizes them. Your deck symbolizes them.
Yes, and we
So
really
many.
wanted to address this part of this difficult part of our companionship with horses and our use of them is that when they're no longer of service or bringing us entertainment, that they are forgotten. And
Mm,
it's not something unique to horses. And it's something in humanity as well. The people that are forgotten on the side of the road, or the homeless, or whatever, needs to be woven back into our culture.
mm, mm, mm. Yeah, it's so powerful because this is really calling us back to remember what's important, to try to remember what we really are. And that's why mindfulness is so essential. As to what is can we remember? Can we remember that we're here to be alive together and to be those ambassadors? That's what we're here to do. And all the ones that we do forget, because we forget that we have forgotten the wisdom traditions. They're not really part of our education. And I would always teach the way I taught philosophy was as a way of life. And so then the students we were talking people from 18 to, I mean, I had veterans too. So people in their 30s, 40s, 50s. And they would say, why didn't I learn this in elementary school? Well, because the culture wants you to forget. And it wants you to forget that you have so much more capacity in you, especially for goodness. You're not allowed to remember that your superpowers are compassion and love and insight and creativity, and that we were super before we were human, as Jeff Greipel puts it, my wisdom brother.
Hmm.
So the horses remind us that we're super. And we just have to remember the forgotten parts of us. But also, I like too that you're saying it's the things that we don't want to look at. We try to forget what our consumption day to day does to the world, or we try to forget about the war, or forget that really I thought I was becoming a lawyer for justice. Well, forget that, right?
Right.
I mean, there's all the ways we're kind of seduced into forgetting what really matters and how to take care of it. You know what's a good movie about this too is did you see Pig?
No.
Nick Cage.
Okay.
It's really it like he's a it's as if it's the one of the first because I'm trying to think I don't want to say it's the first but it's as if it's a bodhisattva superhero movie,
Uh-huh.
as if a person who just uses the power of love and compassion, and the message is so much about how important it is to find things and beings who are really worth caring about, and then to care about them and not to forget that that's the only thing that matters. It's a
Wow.
really, really sweet film. I thought
Yeah.
it was going to be some tough guy thing. You know, his pig gets kidnapped, and I was like, oh, okay, he's going to go beat some people up. It is the opposite.
Oh my gosh, that
It
sounds
is,
fascinating.
oh, it
And
was
right, what
really
we're
beautiful.
talking about, because I was thinking is, like our tendency in a card reading is to kind of go, well, I wanted the happy ending. How does how does the forgotten ones stand for integration? But then what you what you were speaking of earlier about how we think that what we have now is what we've been aiming for, and what if, what we're actually supposed to embrace is better. And it's the same with this. It's like we think that if we reclaim the forgotten ones, that we will be guilty and dragged down into this loop of shame. And actually, if we do reclaim those parts, then there's more love and more light that can be, unfolding from that reclamation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, that is super. And I want to send everybody with so many blessings to consider some of these things that we were talking about, how this could inform your life, or and hopefully you will get a deck for yourself, and you can read more and spend time with those images. It's sometimes important. It's all too easy when I do a I Ching reading for a client. It's kind of an ordeal. We have to schedule 3 sessions, and they have to sit for a long time with things. They have to sit for a week with the question, then they have to sit for at least a week
They
with the
get to
response.
sit.
Yeah, they get to sit. They get to. It's yes, but for a lot of people, it's that's unfamiliar to just
Yeah,
hold a question without closing down around it. So it's like they have to, right?
right,
Because
right,
it's not this quick thing. And the reason why I'm also putting in that is in that sense that it's really easy to throw down 3 cards and then okay, the next day I'm going to do 3 more. But sometimes you really, especially if you ask, I tell clients, if you ask a big enough question, this Yi Jing reading that I'm going to write up for you, 6 months from now, you'll be reading it and going, oh, okay, now
right.
I get what that was saying. So we
Yeah,
asked a big question, and I just invite people, honor the possibility that there's magic here. Come back and listen to this or get a copy of this deck and sit with those 3 cards and say, yeah, they asked a big question on my behalf. And I'm not, there's no prescription of what you have to do, but just maybe there's some inspiration and
yeah.
nurturing
It's
guidance.
interesting you use the word prescription too, because we actually were guided when we were writing this book by one of the editors from that had turned us down for publishing it, but she suggested a prescriptive element, and we had to kind of get clear on what that means. And
Hmm.
one of the what we came up with was it was guidance so that we do ask those questions. So some of the questions that we can invite the listeners to contemplate is they're called contemplations.
Hmm.
So there someone or something you have set out of sight that you resist bringing back to mind? Who, what, and how come? How do you think you are remembered by someone? How do you want to be remembered? What if the question is not why aren't you the person you want to be, but instead why don't you want to be the person you really are? Consider mistakes you have made, then consider what you have learned from them. And it is human nature to want to forget uncomfortable things when you did what you did or didn't do to someone and what someone did or didn't do to you. If you could do or say anything over again, what you would you do or say and to whom?
Hmm.
And then it ends with an invitation. Sleuth out someone or something that has been forgotten. Your kindness and attention can help them remember some of the good memories they have lost.
Yeah, there too, just reaching out to people is a big medicine. And remembering, yeah, remembering our ancestors, remembering the teachers that we've forgotten, who have still have so much to teach us. Yes, and becoming good ancestors is really, that's part of what you're touching
Right.
on in those questions. How do we really become good ancestors? Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim, this has been delightful. And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much for
Likewise.
your work and for your holistic practice. Again, everybody, there'll be links for the deck and for Kim's work in her sanctuary. And if you have any questions or reflections about anything that we've discussed, please send them in through dangerouswisdom.org. We might be able to bring some of those into a future contemplation. Until then, my friends, this is Dr. Nikos, your friendly neighborhood soul doctor, reminding you that your soul and the soul of the world are not two things. Take good care of them.